So there's this guy who I think is like a sex expert or a relationship expert, and he said, read this if you are single. If someone is single and desperately wants a relationship, it doesn't mean they can't be on their own. It doesn't mean they can't be independent. It doesn't mean that they're codependent. It doesn't mean they don't love themselves enough. It doesn't mean that they're not okay alone. It means they seek connection and companionship. And for them, that is important and that is 1000% okay. I don't agree with this. When you start dating and seeking from a place of desperation, which is the next door neighbor to loneliness, you leave yourself vulnerable and susceptible to attract people who are just as desperate, who are just as lonely, and one of you are not going to be able to self-regulate and be accountable for making sure that you don't allow those two low vibrational emotions to create a space for you to behave in a way that can harm yourself or the other person because you're so desperate for this. But let's keep reading, honey. Stop saying this to people. Don't settle. I can't make this up. I had to read it to y'all. Don't settle. You should wait for the right person. Don't be too picky. You're not too picky enough. How are you still single? Do you want to be in a relationship or are you lonely? Love yourself first. If you're not happy single, you won't be happy in a relationship. You don't need a relationship to complete you. It will happen when you least expect it. And I want you to see how many likes this has. This be my point. This be my point, y'all. This be my point. This is why when I look at people who are single that intentionally want it and go after it, I know you are the problem. You're the problem. Not to say that you're unlovable or you're indesirable or you're undeserving. That's not it. Are you ready to maintain and house and make space and also shift a little bit and be flexible for what it is that you really desire? Are you ready to do that, or are you only focused on what this experience, what this person, what this thing can do for you? Being single is hard. It can be empowering and full of individual triumph, but at the end of the day, for many folks, it's very lonely, triggering, and confusing. Single people are often blamed not only for being single, but for wanting a relationship in the first place. They are given contradicting messages. Single people are told how to meet the right person while being discouraged for pursuing relationships for the wrong reasons. Advice and judgment is doled out like candy. It's literally outrageous. Dating is the literal worst. It's a mind fuck. Now, this is my thing. If you're going into an experience that is needed. So, for example, say you want a job, but interviewing is the fucking worst, right? And that can be true, right? That can be true. You could be someone that's like, damn, I hate being interviewed. Or you could be someone that's hiring somebody for your company. I hate interviewing people, but you know that vetting process is a necessity for you getting this desired outcome that you want, which is to be hired or to hire somebody to fulfill something, right? If you go into something that is necessary with the mind frame of I have to instead of I get to, or looking at the glass as half full as opposed to half empty, that mind frame, which is seeds that you're planting in your subconscious, is going to be a breeding ground for you continuing to attract experiences that confirm that bias. If you're seeking romance and you're seeking a partnership and you want to be in a relationship, okay, and you're approaching dating, or dating has become this situation in your head where it's like, oh my god, it's the worst, I don't even want to go on a date, you should probably take a break from dating. Why should dating or wanting to meet someone to, be a companion, be a fuck buddy, enter into a monogamous relationship with, possibly get married, build kids with. Why should you treat that as a grueling task? Why does that have to be a grueling task? Why are you even approaching it in that way? And I feel like the fact that we would program our mindsets to approach a step that's a necessity for something that's supposed to bring joy and happiness and comfort and all those other good mushy feelings, you're already setting yourself up to accept drama that's not necessary, accept hurdles that's not necessary, accept projects and fixer uppers. If you're somebody that takes a partner with a bunch of problems and things that you need to navigate through, like, I don't think people understand that mindset really plays a part in our day-to-day experiences and how we approach them. When will it happen? Hopelessness. Did I finish reading this one? Oh, yeah. Dating is the literal worst. It's a mind fuck. A string of first and second dates, interpreting text messages or the lack thereof, disappointment, apps, being ignored, feeling undesirable, feeling desirable, bad, mostly bad, and good sex with strangers, ghosting, being vulnerable, then shutting down vulnerability only to have to force yourself to try again. The list goes on because the efforts are boundless. Yeah, this. When will it happen? Hopelessness, withdrawal, trying to ignore the loneliness, brushing it off when people ask, smiling at stupid advice, having to support their partner friends through their own relationship challenges. It goes on and on. And yes, friends are helpful and necessary, but for many people, a romantic and sexual connection feeds their soul in a different way. I honestly just feel like this post was problematic. I'm sorry. I do. And this is the comment that I left. I said, I just noticed the people who have those negative attitudes towards being single and dating tend to be in and out of situations that never work, which would make said person the common denominator, meaning maybe you should stay single and learn to reprogram your conscious and subconscious mind to have a more positive outlook towards both experiences. And maybe that will reflect in the goal to be partnered. I said, people whom I know that are in healthy, successful relationships and marriages weren't overly pressed for that connection. Sure, they wanted it, but they found other things and people to focus on and fill their time and heart with until the universe connected them with their person. Most people don't know how to be by themselves, hence why when they get into relationships, 50% of them, if we are talking about marriage, are doomed to fail. Why? Because y'all weren't equally yoked for long, sustainable partnership to begin with. And one of you, at minimum, would have realized that and had the courage to speak it before saying, I do. Just my opinion. Okay. And then I continued and said, people never realize this because they don't sit with themselves long enough to learn themselves. To know yourself is to love yourself. And from there, you have an easier time attracting experiences that reflect the experience you cultivate with yourself. If you are always looking outside of yourself, you will never have time to understand this, which will result in what I stated in my initial comment. So that's what I said about that. And it's the truth. It's the truth. Um a lot of people are not honest about how they really don't take the time to really sit with themselves. That's why, like, I'm seasoned enough in being someone who works on themselves or whatever the case may be and helps other people work on themselves to say, um it's very normal to want to escape the pain and that suffocation that comes from having to face yourself, because you don't always like what you discover and you don't always like what you unearthed about yourself. um in addition to that, it's necessary. is necessary. It's very weird, right? Because with pain comes pleasure, and with pleasure comes pain. And I feel like, especially us as Black women, we've been programmed to think that we have to put up with a lot of pain and a lot of suffering and a lot of, putting twice in to get half back, in an effort to get the pleasure that we desire. But we don't do that when it comes to, like, we don't apply that same logic when it comes to allowing ourselves to sort through our pain and feel our pain and get to the root of our pain and make sense of it, or not even make sense of it, but just understand where it comes from, how it shows up, how it may be prohibiting us or delaying us from accomplishing goals that are not, tied to the matrix and, materialism and superficiality. I say it all the time. We're good at building upward mobility in a superficial and a social sense, but like mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, we're not that good at that. And I would like us to get better at that. So, yeah, that's just my thing. Like, I think that story about that Black mom who had to watch her daughter be choked out and strangled on FaceTime by the father of her kid, it has really stuck with me and stayed with me. And even watching that woman shoot her husband, because it's like, I totally understand that having adverse childhood experiences statistically sets you up to continue to have adverse experiences in your adulthood. And then that's where the generational trauma and the habits and, not knowing better continues throughout generation to generation. I get it. In addition to that, my generation, I'm 27, and those that are coming behind me, we have a unique, opportunity, because mental health and holistic healing and social emotional learning and social services, like, we have more access to these things, even if you can't make it to the therapist office because you don't have health insurance or you can't afford it. You can find a book, you could find the audio free version of the book on YouTube. You could find people that speak to you and have that be the building blocks for you creating some, individuality for yourself. So where you can go and find something that's more equally yoked. Like, when there's a will, there's a way. You understand? If you can sit on the phone all day and complain about your baby mama, then nigga, you could be on the phone all day calling and asking people if they're hiring, calling GED programs. You understand? Calling and seeing which services can you benefit from for housing and stuff. Like, we have resources and ways to be better people so that we can get into relationships with better people. Because again, there's nothing wrong with that, but we just don't take them. We'll sit and scroll social media and dating apps all day and make fake profiles so we can stalk this person to see what this person is doing, but won't go and Google psychology today and see what therapists you can find that take your health insurance and start some cognitive behavioral therapy so you can figure out why you do what you do. And then you come down to the internet with your lack of self-awareness and find 50 other people who agree with you that bitches ain't shit or niggas ain't shit. And now this vicious cycle of thinking that you're not the problem, that you're not the solution, starts. And now you just twirling. And then y'all lay down, y'all have kids, y'all break up, y'all done had kids with crazy bitches and crazy niggas. And now the kids are suffering, and it just keeps going and going and going. So people need to learn. I don't know. The North Node is moving into Aries, opposite of Libra. Libra's relationships, marriage, partnership, lovey-dovey. Aries is like, fuck that shit. I'm for myself. So y'all need to learn how to sit with yourselves. It's hard. It's hard, and it could be a miserable and daunting experience. Like, I can vouch for that, and I empathize for that. I really do. But honey, you just gotta try. You just gotta try. So I think that's it. News is kind of slow.